page 64, Lamed Beis and Beis. Mesav. If the father dies, if the father dies, the reshus does not go to the husband. Meaning that a part of the Nedarim is normally done b'shutfus if the girl is a betrothed nara, and the father and husband have to do it together. What if the father dies? So the Yerushalmi established previously, and actually the Bible argues on that, but Yerushalmi established previously that the father is preeminent. The father has superior rights to the husband. The Bible holds the father and husband have equal rights, which is actually to the detriment. In other words, that you don't say without getting into complications, the father doesn't take over automatically when the husband dies. But here we see we're talking about the other way in any event first, and then we're going to come back to the bout. It's really more complicated than that. I don't want to get it back into it. It has to do with whether Misa is like a comma, Misa is not like a comma, but let's just go on. If the father dies, then the rights do not automatically empty to the husband. If the husband dies and the rights do automatically empty to the father. So you see here in the Mishnah, in and of itself, the superior right which the father has to the husband. In this manner, the father is superior to the power of the husband, and that it spills back from the husband to the father, but not from the father to the husband. In one other manner, the power of the husband is superior to the power of the father. The husband could do hafara in the girl after she's 12 and a half, as long as he's married to her. A father could not do hafara by a girl who's over 12 and a half. They want to say, we're talking in our Mishnah when the father did not nullify yet his portion, umes, and then he died, then it doesn't flow to the husband. But maybe, the inference here is that maybe if the father did nullify his portion and then he died, then perhaps we do say that through authority flows then to the husband. Maybe we can say that, right? So it says, let's learn out from here. There's the next Mishnah. The truth is that this Mishnah should be brought in its entirety here because the raya is from the Sefer. The Yerushalmi only brings the ratio. So let's look at the Mishnah itself. Halacha Daled. The man of the Talmid Chacham would, before their daughter would leave their domain, he would say to her, "Kol nedarim shenadar b'sof beisi," any day you took in my house, harei mufarim, they're nullified. Which of course is a good idea because that blanket nullification cancels all nedarim until that point. The chenabal, so to the husband, achalo tikones l'shuso, before she enters his sole domain. Now he's already betrothed to her, but not married to her. So before that, he says, Omer says, "Kol nedarim shenadar achalo tikones l'shusi." Any nedarim took before you enter my domain, harei mufarim, they are nullified. Why? So once she becomes nesua to him, he cannot retroactively remake her. It's a fascinating thing. The husband can be made her with the father, in partnership while she's in arusa. The moment she becomes an nesua, the husband gets sole authority, but he loses his authority in any neder which preceded the nesua. Just like the father loses authority after she becomes a nesua, so too he loses authority even over the authority which he had as a partner the last few months.
Well, there was a window of opportunity. That window's closed.
Right, but despite the fact that now he became sole proprietor of her nedarim.
That's only from Kanama.
Right, exactly. Okay, that's what I'm saying. That's exactly what Mishnah says. So getting back to our Gemara, okay? In our Gemara, 5 lines at the bottom of Beis Hadorma teaches us, Afilu, even, take out the low, the Moshe takes that low, Afilu heker of chelko umeisa of, even if the father nullified his portion and then he died, lo nistokur shusabau, the Baal does not get the dominion. Why not? How do we say from our Mishnah? Because there we see that, in essence, when she becomes a Nesua, even if her father is happily living, that should be called Nisrokna, right? She should be able, let the father nullify, and then let it all flow to the husband who's now Nasui to the girl, and let him be able to nullify. It doesn't work. He's got to nullify prior to becoming Nasui to her. So here we see that you don't send Yisrokna, it doesn't flow even if to the husband under any circumstance. Because otherwise, the next Mishnah, again, we should have a qualifier which says that if the father nullified prior to the Nisuin, then it should flow to him upon the Nisuin. It's interesting proof, right? Because the saying the Nisuin should be tantamount to the death of the father, because in one case he's being removed physically, the other is being removed halachically, and if that case, if one is removed halachically, there's no way for the authority which he has to flow to the husband. So too, when he dies, there's no way for the authority which he has to flow to the husband, even if he was Mefer, because there's no such qualification next Mishnah. Okay? Interesting proof. Now, what about the other way? If the husband dies, it flows to the father. I'm a boy, maybe the one to say, that's only if the husband nullified his own portion. But what if the husband did not nullify his portion and he died? Perhaps he'd say in that case that it doesn't flow to the father. Maybe in order for it to flow, then there has to be hafara by the husband before he dies. So it says, it's proved from here. Not of Yerusa, interesting case. This case also brought down a Mishnah later on. Not of Yerusa, she took a nether and she was betrothed. Nizgarsha bo bayom. She was divorced on that day. Nisatsa bo bayom. This is a kakamemi case. She got engaged that day again. More kakamemi. Afilu lemeo. She got betrothed. She needs a good psychologist. She got betrothed to and divorced, betrothed and divorced 100 times. Aviu balo acharon mefirin es nidra. Her father and the last husband nullified the neder she took 100 husbands ago. Could that possibly work? Obviously, the first there was no hafar on the part of the first husband. The first husband hates her guts. He divorced her, right? First 99 husbands hate her guts. They all divorced her in turn, right? So how does the 100th husband have the right to be mefer? It must be, in each case we say nisroikno. Nisroikno. It flowed to whom? To the father. It flowed to the father even without hafara on the Baal's part. That's obviously the case. Because in this case we don't assume the Gerush is like hafara. Now that's an important point to make. In the previous Gemara, which we saw last week, there was a discussion whether Misa is like Hakama or Misa is like Hafara, what the status of Misa is. Right? And when somebody dies and it was not Matir, his part, then the Maker is part of the Nether, is that like Hafara or is that like Hakama? Or is it neither? But Gerushin clearly is held to be like Shasika, like silence. Right? It's certainly not like Hafara, and obviously it's not like Hakama. Because if it was the Akama, then no subsequent husband would be able to be maker, that which a previous husband would be maker. And if it was Hafara, then he wouldn't need a subsequent husband, right? So it must be that it's like neither. It's like it's neither Akama nor Hafara, just plain Shasika. And the way it works is that it zigzags. After each divorce, it's Nisrokna to the father, and then it goes back when the new Orus comes on the scene to the new fiance. Okay, that's how the Yerushalmi saying. Okay? Adam teacher that feel loyfer about chelkom ames. Even if the husband not notified his portion and died, same thing here like divorce, right? Umeis about misroklu shusab, it goes to the father. Okay? So the Yerushalmi is learning at this point that Misa Sabal is obviously not like Afora, not like Akama. It should like Shasika, and it flows to the to the father. Again, as I told you, the Bavli argues. The Bavli actually says that the Bible holds that if the husband dies without being made for his portion, then it can't flow to the father, right? It can only flow to the father if the husband was made for before he died. It's the Bible argues in Yerushalmi. Now, in the line of top of Lam and Aleph on the base, Lam on base, Rabbi Nosson says, Rabbi Nosson Zvi Rabbi Sham v'Divrei Chacham Ein Tzarich L'Hafer B'Shelo Heikim. The father does not have to be made for the portion of the Baal as long as the Baal was not making, right? So the Bavli has, instead of Ein Tzarich, Ein Yochel L'Hafer. That if the Baal was not made for before his death, so then the Av cannot be made for subsequently. So that's diametrically, our Yerushalmi is consistent with the previous Yerushalmi, that the father has the right to be made for even if the Baal was not made for, because Nisrokna is automatic. Whereas the Bavli holds it's only Nisrokna if the Baal was made for Chelko and then dropped dead. Okay? The Baal survived, Baal was not made for Chelko before he died, then we don't say Nisrokna. Okay?
It seems more logical, because the girl is still living in the father's house. So he should still be able to be this.
Right, I don't know how the Baal, I didn't get a chance tonight preparing, I didn't get a chance to look at the Bavli. I don't know what the Bavli does with this Mishnah. You're right, this Mishnah seems, the Mishnah which the Yerushalmi just cited about the 100 times, seems to be more logically in line with the Yerushalmi. Unless Yerushalmi learns that Gerushin, but I assume it's that the Bible learns that Gerushin doesn't work the same way as Misa. There's some qualitative, in other words, Yerushalmi's learning that Gerushin and Misa can be compared to each other. The Bavli probably learns that there's some distinction between the two. Okay? Right, no, and obviously there must be some ramification vis-a-vis Nisrokna, which makes a difference. Okay? Mesa of Lo Nisrokna Reshus Labal. We said if the husband dies, it doesn't flow to the father dies, it doesn't flow to the husband. Rabbi Chagai Boikum, Rabbi Yosa. Rabbi Chagai asked for Rabbi Yosa, Akidum ben Dorim. Now the Korban changed the gears here. And it says Akidum ben Dorim Shenodra. That makes sense with the Norim that she was no there instead of Mishin Yisar, so after she was betrothed. Ad Shalot Yisaris, before she was betrothed. Those can't be Nisrokna. But Nedarim Shenodra Mishin Yisar, but Nedarim which came after she got betrothed, Mesa of Lo Nisrokna Reshus Labal. If the husband dies, the father dies, it doesn't go to the Baal. Why not? I understand that the Nedarim taken before Erusin. There was no husband on the scene, so how can we Nisrokna to the husband? But Nedarim taken after Erusin, let them flow to the husband on the death of the father. Amalei, so he said, the Nedarim Shenadu Achalot Yisayis from Yisarso. The Nedarim, even the Nedarim, which she took before she got betrothed. After her betrothed to Lokfa and Yiru La'av, and it should be Villa Ba'ala Haferla, your question is not valid, because if you think about it, there's no qualitative difference. A neder she took before her Erusin, if the husband did not hear, if the father did not hear about it until after Erusin, so now you need the husband to be made for as well. It's clear if the father heard about it before Erusin occurred, then it's up to him. He only has one day in which to do it, but it's up to him. If he didn't hear about it until after Erusin, so he can't do it on his own. He's got to do it together with the husband. Each one needs the partnership of the other. So the Tamar Mesa of Lo Nisrokna Reshus Labal. So why would you say in that case? So obviously there's already a partnership. So there's no qualitative difference. If there too, if you're going to say that Mesa of Lo Nisrokna Reshus Labal, when the father dies, the Nedarim taken before everything do not flow to the husband. So if that's the case, since there is no qualitative difference, the Nedarim taken after everything should also flow to the Reshus of the husband. Should also flow and obviously do not flow.
So the father had the potential to make it a neder, even though he didn't do it while she was still, before she was engaged. The husband never had that potential.
Why not?
Because she took the neder before she became engaged.
Yeah, but if the father doesn't hear about it until the engagement, so then the husband kicks in.
Yeah.
That's what his response was. His response was, I can kick in the husband even on the Nedarim taken before Erusin. Right? So since I can kick him in even on the Nedarim taken before Erusin, so therefore, you're trying to draw a distinction, a chiluk. Your chiluk is not machalik. Yes, it's true. The Nedarim taken after Erusin, the husband is automatically in. The Nedarim taken before Erusin, he's only introduced if the husband, if the father didn't hear about it until after Erusin. But he says that if we don't say Nisrokna by one, we won't say Nisrokna by the other. Okay, that's what he's saying, because the husband can be introduced as a factor in either case. Okay? Says Gemara, that's his response. You don't like his response, so that's how he responds. Not that Shalom Yisarsa. Why did she take a neder before she got betrothed? Actually, this is a statement, I think. Not that Shalom Yisarsa, if she took the neder before she got betrothed, Mesa Baal, then the husband dies, Yisroknu Rishus Lav. Then the Rishus goes to the father. That's Pashut, right? Well, it's not Pashut, but it makes sense. She took the neder before Erusin, right? Her father didn't hear until after Erusin. So of course that kicks the husband in. But once the husband dies, we say Nisrokna reverts to the pre-Erusin condition. Now here the Karbaneh throws in Nadra Mishan Yisarsa. This is more of a chiddush. If she took the neder after Erusin, Mesa Baal, and then the husband dies, Lo Nisrokna Rishus Lav. In that case, do we say that the Rishus does not go to the father? Which maybe it's only, again, this is actually building on the previous part. The previous part said, okay, there's no chiluk between whether the neder is taken before Erusin or after Erusin, as long as the shmiyah did not take place till after Erusin. Okay, so let's turn that back on you. You want to say, do you want to say such a dichotomy that if she took the neder before Erusin and then was misaresas, and then her husband died, so then we say nisrokna. But if not, I don't know if it's turning it back, but it's a legitimate independent query. What about if she took the neder after Erusin and then the husband died? We in that case not say nisrokna because the neder was taken after Erusin. So he says, again, no, there's no Kaveh distinction. Amalei said, "V'chin neder shenodor shel nisarsa." The neder she took before Erusin, nisarsa. Lo kvar niru lo avla ba'la hafer. There too, again, the husband can be is artificially introduced to the situation, right? La'afila, the Tamar Mesabam, Nisrokna, Rishus Lav. So in that case, what we say if the husband dies, we say Nisrokna. So that would mean also, I feel neder shenodar, Mishni Sarsa, in neder she took after Erusin Mesabam, and the husband died, Nisrokna, Rishus Lav. Bottom line is, we say that there's no distinction between them. Even though there's a chiluk, it's not a chalik. Since the Nedarim are Nedarim which are shaykh to the father, even if we introduce a husband, regardless of when the husband is introduced, whether at the time of the neder or subsequently, we always say Nisrokna to the father. That's the thing. And again, according to Yerushalmi, regardless of whether the Baal was made for before he died or was not made for before he died. Okay? Now, getting back to another point on Mishnah. Shabbat made for a beggar, the husband can be made for a beggar, but Masnisin to Rabbi Lezer. The Amish like Rabbi Lezer, time Shem Lezer, Imayos Yeli Ish, if she'll be to a husband, this is earlier in the parak we had this, Bogeres Harusa Kosim Medabra. The Chiddush is, of course, if she's Nisu, her husband can be made for her. But even if she's only an Arusa, as a Bogeres, her husband can be made for her betrothed fiancé, can be made for her already. In other words, don't think you have to wait for Nisuin. Then that Erusin only works for a Nara where there's a partnership. No, once she's Bogeres, her fiancé solo can be made for all Nedarim.
Because her father loses control.
Right, father loses control. And then the control of the husband spreads on her.
Even though she's still living in her father's house.
That's right. It's a chiddush, right? But that's a chiddush for a
She
mission.
reaches the age of majority.
That's correct. I don't know. I didn't look it up. Well, look, but it sounds like, look, obviously Rabbi Lezer holds that way, not everybody holds that way. Rabbanon on that, I don't know what I don't remember what the Bavli argues, but certainly on Daf Lamed Alpha and Beis, at the beginning of the Perek, that was Machlokes Rabbanon and Rabbi Lezer. Whether Bogeres Arusa, her husband, can be made for law or not.
It's like the age of majority. Child turns 18, they can still live in the house, but they can do anything they want.
I don't know. I actually don't know if we passed them with Rabbi Lezer. Could we pass them to Rabbanon? I didn't look up Halacha.
Somebody told me that that's not.
It's not the case?
No.
I don't know, we passed it. Okay. I don't know. Yeah. That's right. Okay, Halacha Gimel. Nadra v'Arusa, if she took a net and she was Narusa. She was Narusa already. These Gashabavim, we just had this on top of the Yom, and then she was divorced in that day. These Gashabavim got to be betrothed again. I feel may even 100 times. I feel Baal Achon, her father and her last husband. Within the they can nullify her vows. As long as we can keep saying again, according to Yerushalmi Nedarim, you strike them back and forth, right? Flows the husband back to a new, flows her husband to the father, back to a new husband, back to the father, and so on and so forth. As long as she was never home free at any time, her father and the last husband in this series, whoever that is, they nullify her vows. Rabbi said, says he dashes the pasuk to teach us this principle. Even them 100 marriages. It's a reboot. Mavil Balachim Mevin Rabbi said, Masisa Amake. Mishnah says, Shavio Balachim Mevin Nedarim. That which you dash Rabbi Hila, it's really the Pshat in our Mishnah, which is partial. Okay, with the first part of the Halacha that we reiterate, that the Milcham Shlo, he said, but Bita Yerushalmi Nedarim, Omer Lo, he says to call the Nedarim Shanav Tog, Beis Yerim for and nullify all of them. Chen Abal Shlo Tikon Shusha before she becomes a Nesua. Omer Lo, he says to call the Nedarim Shanav Tog, that Shlo Tikon Shusha. Oh, the Nedarim took before you enter my domain. Arei Mufar na Mufar Mishit Tikon Shusha. Because when she enters the domain, any yochel for no longer works. Bogeres, if she's a Bogeres, she's over 12 and a half. Or she's already after 12 months after Erusin, right? So we know 12 months. He has to marry her. If he doesn't marry her, he already has to feed her. That's a critical component here. Va'amana. And Amona, V'amona Shloshim Yom, and Amona, Bulgaris, Amona Shloshim Yom, Amona, after, a Basula gets 12 months between after Erusin, before she has to get married. Amona only gets 30 days. So Basula needs more preparations for the Chasna, right? So therefore, since that's the case, Basul after 12 months, Ramon after 30 days. The says, since the husband at this point, her fiancé, after she comes to Vokeris, or after 12 months, or after 30 days by Amana, whichever comes first, so the city's Chaim said, you offer he can be made for. Solo. It only is made for once she is a Nesua. Again, solo. Only once she's a Nesua. It's an amazing thing. But Mizpah Savar Rabbi Lezer and Mizonos Sadavar Toli. Rabbi Lezer holds his contingent on on his requirement to feed her. Why is that? So it's really a lumdus. The truth is, Rabbi Lezer looks at a husband not as a husband, but as a food bag, right? So therefore, any nether she takes, nowadays, by some of us, it's the opposite. But nowadays, so the husband takes the nether of Bas Ishto, right? But this is the lumdus, that he takes, I didn't tell you, that he takes the nether al das ish al das, she takes the nether al das whoever's feeding her. So therefore, until now, the father was feeding her, so the father was part of the nether. But after 12 months, after by psula, after she becomes a Bogeret, after 30 days, now the food comes from him, he has the authority. Kiddushisham nas lazun. So if that's the case, says the Gemara, let's say that if a guy was Makayish's wife on the condition that he's going to feed her immediately after Erusin, Habal made for love. No place of vows. And vice versa, Nosa Isha Menashalo Lazun. If he does Nisuin with the woman with the condition that he's not going to feed her, of made for law, then the father should be made for her. Right? I'm sorry. Sir, of made for the father should be made for. Period. Okay, there should be a period over there because that's the logic that it's logic of that it's contingent on feeding. What's the logic of Chachamim? Rabbi Shemiyochan said, so Chachamim hold it's not because it has nothing to do with feeding, but it has to do with Rishus. And Rishus is determined not by feeding, but by Nisuin. So he still doesn't have the right to do the door. I don't know if they hold it's a logical machlekes, what her das is, or that Rabbi Lezer holds it follows logic of das. But Rabbanan hold it follows the, halachic state of Nisuin as opposed to Erusin. I'm not sure exactly what the crux of the machlokes is. Shomeres Yavam. A woman who's waiting for Yavam, Bein Yavam Echel Bein Shnei Yavam, regardless of whether it's one or two. Rabbi Lezer Yofer, Rabbi Lezer says he can be made for. The question is who's the he, right? There are two Yavam here. Rabbi Shuamer Echel, only there's one Yavam. Lav Lo Shnai, but not two. Not one nor two. Now it all has to do with Maimer and Zika, right? That's really what our mission is all about, right? So actually, Rabbi Lezer holds, according to the Bavli, the Moshe brings down, though it's not clear that the Yerushalmi necessarily agrees, but the Yerushalmi, the way the Bavli learns, that Rabbi Lezer, when Rabbi Lezer says Yofer, it's already was Maimer. And since already was Maimer, that's already enough of a kinyan that whichever the Yavamim did Maimer, he can be made from the Nedarim. Now again, it could be that Maimer only works for Rabbana, but Rabbi Lezer l'shitasa, Rabbi Lezer holds it's out. It goes by just like in the previous mission. He said it goes by al das. That she always says Nedarim al das. Whoever feeds her could be she does the Neder al das. The guy did Maimer, and that's enough that he could be the mafer, right? So that could be true. Okay. Al dai to Rabbi Lezer. Now says the Gemara. Al dai to Rabbi Lezer. Made for law v'hein. It said now it's not clear what exactly the proper gears there should be. I was thinking made for law v'hein means both of them have to be made for, not like the Bavli. But the Yerushalmi says that according to Pnei Moshe and Kormei does not say that. He says that according to the actually, Pnei Moshe might learn that way. All right, look at him again. Yeah, maybe he does learn that way. I'm not sure exactly. Maybe he does learn that way. I'll take Rabbi Lezer made for law behain. Both of them are made for it. The Marav Yavo B'Shem B'Yochanan, a few kedushay mer tov simbo. No, it's a question, according to Moshe. It's like this. With Vehain is a question. Which one? The Marav Yavo B'Shem B'Yochanan, a few kedushay mer tov simbo. And so with that, Rabbi said in Rabbi Yochanan, a different case of Kiddush, when one guy is Mekash after 30 days, the next guy comes Mekash after 29 days, the next guy is Mekash after 27 days, Mekan Lachar Shlosh, Mekan Lachar invitation, Mekan Lachar Vishwana, where we say even 100 people can be Mekash that way, me Mayfilo, which one of these 100 is Mayfer? And the Gemara doesn't answer. The Gemara is not going to answer any of the question asked over here. Also, that which Rabbi Yaakov said, named Rabbi Yochanan, if you buy an Amo Ivriya, the Yad of no Kata, you could do Yud and designate your Amo Ivriya to your minor child. It's the only case, according to him, I don't remember this from the Bavli at all, but maybe it isn't the Bavli. He says the only case where you can make it's from Kiddushin, so maybe that's why I haven't done it in a while. The only case you can be Mekadosh a woman is if the father bought the girl as an Amma, and now he's miyayid her, he designates her for his young son, and it works. That's valid midaraisa. Shilas, can it be made for an Nedarim? Is that enough for him to be made for an Nedarim? Even though he has no das, right? That's a loophole in the law. It's the one case in which it works because of the nature of Amr Ivriya. So, I don't remember it's in the Bible such a case. No cut to me made for. Who does that for him? If the father was miyayid or the son who's now the husband. Vaidamar, that would say Rabbi Yaakov, Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Yerushalmi Nedarim, Afilu Osham Totally a law. It's talking about where a cheresh marries, and that of course is Kiddushin Rabbanan, right? So again, this would be contingent whether we hold that it's al das the cheresh, and then he can be made for, or do we say that we need a technical safe Kiddushin? Of course, it doesn't apply. Me made for law, can the cheresh be made for or not? None of these questions are resolved. Okay, we'll stop here for this evening. We are on, to continue with last night's tape, we are on Halacha Vav, on page Lamadal and Ralph. Most of tonight's Gemara is parallel in the Bavli. A lot of it is parallel to the Bavli. Halacha Vav, Masnisi, Amr Bilozer. This is the logic. We could base it on for the last Mishnah. Last Mishnah discussed Shemeres Yavam, whether Yom can be matur net, and we said basically after Maimer he can. That's according to Rabbi Lazar. Rabbi Kiva argued. Rabbi Lazar presents his logic. He says, "Ma'im isha shukano hula atzmo." If a woman who he acquired himself, meaning a regular wife, Harei made for Nedarim, he can be made for Nedarim after this week. Isha shukano min hashamayim. Here, where Kodesh Baruch Hu gave him this wife by making Yavama, Ein Odin Shav Nedarim, it's not Kavachom that he can be made for Nedarim. On the Rabbi Kiva said, "Loi mamar to bisha shukano hula atzmo." No, it's not comparable. If you, by one who acquired himself, Shein Lachem Barashus, others do not have authority over that woman. So therefore, it's only his, and that's why he has permission to be made for an Nedarim. So Rabbi Ishish Khanal Mishmar, as opposed to this woman who's granted to him by a Kodesh Baruch Hu, Sheish Lachem Barashus, other people have dominion over her. In that, we're talking about a case where there were two Yachmin. Right, so therefore, even though one is the mimer, it's still not completely ain't over till it's over completely, and therefore he can't be made for her Nedarim. Okay, so Rabbi Yeshua said to Rabbi Akiva, you're right about a case where two Yavmin. So there are Cherem have Rishus. She's not solely the province of the one who's going to be Dumaimer. However, what he's in the case when there's only one Yavam. There's only one Yavam, so then there's no vying for authority. The one who has the sole Yavam should have the right to be made for an Nedarim. And that should kick in even after Maimer. Amalosi said, any Yavama Gemurali Isha, Kishem Sharusa Gemurali Isha. A Yavama, even after Maimer, is not completely married in the same way that Arusa is. And the Korban Eiv Moshe made clear what's the difference. That even after Maimer, Yavama is not considered, at least midaraisa, to be a Chiv Misa, right? And some Mizana with the Yavama, after Maimer, that person is still not liable to the death penalty until his actual Bia. Whereas in the case of an Arusa, of course, there's a death penalty incurred the moment she becomes an Arusa. So therefore, there's more affinity between Arus and Arusa that he can be made for Nedarim than between at least in partnership with the father, than between a Yavam who did Maimer and his Yivimta.
Another possibility with multiple Yavamim is if the Zika.
Yeah, in fact, the Bali speaks on some length about Zika, Breira, and those issues here. Your favorite issues that probably here in the Nedarim combines together. There's machlokas here by yesh zikr, ein zikr, yesh be'em b'er. Don't discuss that. Like the Yerushalmi doesn't discuss that, but probably does. Amar Vilna said, "Umayim yisra shelo yali yibav rishus." Now this is just an expansion of the Mishnah. Amar Vilna said, "Umayim yisra shelo yali b'rishus." A woman who had no domain over her, before she entered my dominion, that woman, once she enters my dominion, is completely mine. Meaning, a woman who is not a woman who is a regular wife. Before she became a Arusa, she was nothing. Now that she entered my dominion, she's completely mine. Isha Shahayli B'Shusi, where I had dominion over her, actually, before she entered my domain. Once she entered my domain, it should be completely mine. Vis-a-vis Halacha Nedarim. Now, it's there are two ways we've had to explain the sugya here. In Rabbi Eliezer and in Rabbi Eliezer on Lam Gimel and Alf. One way was to say that we're looking to the technicality or the technical details of when she becomes in the Rishus or not in the Rishus. The other way is to say it has to do with her das, right? Whether she's Noid al Das, this fellow, or not Noid al Das, this fellow. So, obviously, we say it has to do with being Noid al Das, the fellow, even if the fellow is not yet technically taking her into his domain, since, for example, as we said, she's feeding, she's getting fed by him already, so that's enough for her Nedarim to be contingent on his say-so. Okay, because like Neder tonight. So here it sounds like Rabbi Eliezer is shying away a bit from this far. The Rabbi Eliezer is using a difference by saying that the Rishus of Maimer should be sufficient Rishus in order for him to be able to be made for her Neder. Why is that? Because Maimer is working on a woman who already had some shaykhus there. And so adding on to that shaykhus, that should be considered to be sufficient shaykhus to be made for Nedarim because of the affinity, the intimacy between the two of them. That's what it seems to be saying over here. We'll see if the Gemara changes that in a few lines. I think it does. We'll see. Akiva said, no, it's not comparable. If you said by a woman who's a regular Rusa, you did not have any domain over her before she came into your domain. But if she enters your domain, she's completely yours. Why is that? Why is she completely yours? She says you prior to having married had no portion in her. But so too others do not have in her imcha with you chelek, a portion. So therefore, the reason why once she's in Arusa, she's yours vis-a-vis Heter Nedarim, is because nobody else ever had a portion in her, and you now took over whatever portion there is. I mean, there are no other potential husbands, right? At least not ones which had an affinity to her prior to getting married to you. However, over here, in our case over here, right, Tamar B'Isha is supposed to woman with this woman where, in fact, you did have some zika prior to having entered your domain as Maimer. You want to contend that once Maimer is done, she's completely yours vis-a-vis Nedarim? No, that won't work over here. Just like you had a portion in her, so too others had a portion with you in her, right? Because obviously that we're talking about in no case and there's a second Yom. So you both had a portion in her.
That's before Maimer.
Right, but even Maimer, so if you say Maimer doesn't completely shy away from that.
No, but it negates the other potential,
Rabbanan. So that might not be sufficient. That's what Rabbi Akiva is contending. It's not a sufficient negation of the other Yavam. And the proof of that pudding is that if the other, as we learned several Yavams, if the other Yavam comes and has relations, So it makes the mimer possible, right? Because you're not really the wife of the second guy yet, right? So Amar Rabbi said that's true. That you can say by 2 year Yavmin. What about a case where he's a solo Yavam? There is no other man, right? Amar Lei, so he said, Kashem Shloch Hilak the Lord of Becheres Yavam Echel Vishnei Yavami. Just like you didn't divide for us between Shemeres Yavam to one, to Shemeres Yavam to 2. Ben Shosaba Maimer, Ben Shloas or Maimer. Whether there's a whether he did Maimer or not. Basically, what the one is trying to say, it seems to me, is that the halacha. What actually, it not seems to me. It seems to think Moshe that qualitatively, there's no difference whether there's 1 Yavam, 2 Yavim, whether Maimer is done or not. In all cases, her death is not going to be she's not going to be put to death if she's mizana. If somebody's mizana with her, it's not going to be put to death. So it's saying qualitatively, there's no distinction between these various states, whether there's 1 Yavim or 2 Yavim, whether there was Maimer yet or no Maimer yet. L'maisis, this is no death penalty. It's not comparable at all to an arusa. Arusa, the affinity of the bond is so strong that there's a death penalty. You can't compare a woman who's Yavama or even a Baal Maimer to that case. And therefore there is insufficient affinity to be able to allow the husband, or the Yavam, I should say, to be made for Nedar. Yeah, that's what he says here. So it says, Yacham Nedar Mishvuz, okay? So, that's good? No, I don't think so. I'm like, Shem Shlo Chilak Lanu. This is Rabbi Akiva responded to Rabbi Shua, just like he did this distinction between Shemeres Yavam Echad, whether it's 1, L'shnei Yavim, or 2 Yavim. They trust my Maimer and Shlos or Maimer, whether Maimer was done or Maimer wasn't done. Now, the next line, actually, even though there's no Amar Lei, is a new statement. Yoram Nedarim Shvuos, okay? Is this true by the Nedarim and Shvuos that the Maimer doesn't work? So it says the Gemara. What's that? This is who's speaking to whom? Yeah, that's Meir Shul says. Yocham Nedarim Shvuos, okay? This is apply both Nedarim Shvuos that the Baal Maimer cannot be made for Nedarim Shvuos. Amalo Aval, so he said yes, it applies applies all to both. It applies to Nedarim Shvuos, and the reason why the chiluk between why he mentioned Nedarim Shvuos, if I recall correctly, later on this evening we're going to see why he mentioned both Nedarim and Shvuos, not just Nedarim by themselves. So Amalo Aval, he said yes. Amar Lo. Now the next line I'm going to translate not like a Karmeid, not like a Pnei Moshe, and rather I'm going to translate this as a statement which Rabbi Akiva made to Rabbi Yoshua. And Amar, just like I hold that Baal Maimer cannot do anything according to the conventional pshat, he can't be made for Nedarim or Shvuos. Ilo Yisa be Meir Bilazar ben Arach. Even if I was in the Ilo Yisa, if you were and if I were as well, says Akiva. The days of Bilazar ben Arach. Now, Bilazar ben Arach is one who holds in Masech the Yavamas that Maimer is Kohen and Gomer. Rabbi Akiva's chiddush is that even though Maimer is Kohen and Gomer, according to Bilazar ben Arach, that is not vis-a-vis Nedarim. Vis-a-vis Nedarim, the new husband can only be made for neder after Biyah. That's why Rabbi Akiva wants to be machadish. And he says, "You used to be married to Omar, who says the ain is a mistake, who holds Maimer Kohen and Gomer, the Maimer works completely. It's an amazing concept. Even though according to she is now technically after Maimer the same thing like an arusa, like a regular engaged betrothed girl. and therefore her death penalty would now be, she wasn't sued before, death penalty would now be chenek, right? She would be put to death if she was Mizani. Nevertheless, vis-a-vis Nedarim, it ain't over until she actually consummates the Biyah, the Yibum with Biyah. And I think there's a logic to that. I think that the bottom line is that Raksha should be in the interest of truth and advertising. I should say that Pnei Moshe says that even after Maimer, according to Bloz Ben Arach, there is no death penalty. But I don't know if he's correct about that, because I think according to Bloz Ben Arach, even after Maimer, since it's Kohen Kinyan Gomer, there is a death penalty if she's Mizani.
It's Midrabanan. How could the Rabbanan institute a death penalty?
Yeah, but Bloz Ben Arach holds it's Midaraisa. He holds it's Daraisa. But the bottom line is that vis-a-vis Nedarim, the Arus normally can only be made for with the father, right? The Shutlis with the father. And here I would say that the Arus, even after the Maimer, is not considered to be a full Arus like one normally is. And therefore her Nedarim are not taken, according to Rabbi Akiva, her Nedarim are not taken by him, taken up by his ownership until actually such time as...
Because he's not supporting it.
Right. But even if
according to Lezer Brother Roch, he's still not supporting her.
Right, he's not supporting her. But even if he was supporting her, until Biyah, I would say that until by Yibum, since the purpose of Yibum is Lohakim Shem Lohakiv, until Biyah takes place, it's not a full bond. It could be, the one doesn't say it could be your Svara, it could be my Svara. But one point I wanted to make from the Bavli is that the Bavli says, in Yerushalmi doesn't bring this down, but the Bavli says that according to Yeshua, after Maimer, the reason why one of the reasons why after Maimer the guy can be made for Nedarim according to Yeshua is because after Maimer he already is liable to pay Mazonos. So in that way the Bible is going to learn that the contingency of Maimer is linked to the idea of her taking a neder al daito, even if it's not a full kinyan d'oraisa, because the Maimer already cements a relationship which would lead her to take a Nedarim al dasis to husband. That's how the Bible works. Yerushalmi doesn't make that clear. Yerushalmi fudges on that. It doesn't make it clear whether it's a technical thing, looking at the Rishus, the dominion she's under, or looking at her das. Okay, so I don't know how the Yerushalmi and Shabbos waffles and is ambiguous on it. But could be the Yerushalmi and the Bible do hold the same thing, that it's contingent on her das as opposed to technical Rishus. I really don't know. It's up in the air. Okay? Halacha zayin. Somebody says to his wife, any that you take me from now until I come back from so and so location, they are sustained. But be forewarned. Any debt you take, I am automatically sustaining. Law my klum. It's not valid. You can't sustain a nether before it's taken place. If, however, you said let them be null and void, you notified her that it should be null and void. Rabbi says you can be made for prospectively. You can only be made for retroactively. Retroactively is not the right word. Retroactive? Okay, so that's the opposite of perspective. So retroactive? Prospectively means for the future. What's the opposite of perspective? Retrospectively. That's right. Right. Not retroactively. Retrospectively. That's what it means. Okay, so you could be made for prospectively. You can only be making retrospectively. You can't be made for prospectively as well. You can't nullify the nether prospectively until it's taken. Rabbi Lezer really said, let me explain to you my logic. Or if you can be made for an nether which already was taka, became an isser, right? Retrospectively. So then, it's not Kapachum, it can be made for the which has not yet taken effect, right, or prospectively. If you do it once it already took place, it's more severe, so it says before it takes place. Amarlo, they said to him, no, he meant to be shoy for Redom. Her husband sustains them, and her husband nullifies them. And those that are susceptible to being sustained, which means they're already taken, are susceptible to being nullified. Never came to be sustained. It never has the potential to be nullified as well. And he gave another argument against her. He said, look, you want to say 4 words prospectively? Can you go to the mikveh before you come tell me, because you're going to become Tomei? Right? Let the mikveh disprove this. Shema is the most, and once you tell me you can go to the mikveh, and it works retrospectively. Then the term, it doesn't, so it's not prospective safeguarding as you come to tell me. There's no such thing. Because Rebbeles have done a dinach, so Rebbeles came once to learn out differently. He said, "My b'makom she'enu mefer, a place where he cannot do afara, which are nidriato mishnada. You can't be made for your own nedarim once you took an eder. You have to go to a chacham to be master. You can't be made for your own nedarim. Harehu mefer, but he can be made for still, and it should be nidrei ishto mishatidor instead of nidrei atzmo shaloidor. Should be nidrei ishto mishatidor. He cannot be made for his own nedarim after he took them. But he can be made for his wife's wife after he took them, right? Okay? Let me read that again, the way the Shai Torah said, so it's changing. Starting from the first line. My Makom she'enu mefer, a place where it can't be mefer. Nidrei atzmo we should know his own nedarim what's doing there. Harehu mefer, he can be made for Nidrei ishto mishatidor, it can be made for his wife's nedarim after she took them. Makom shu mefer, a place where it can be made for, which are Nidrei atzmo chulohidor. You give me most of it, though. It's really what Kol Nidrei is. What is Kol Nidrei every year? What do I say in Kol Nidrei? It's perspective, right? So how can be? If I could, it's a kavachomer. If I can't be made for my own nedarim retrospectively. I have to go to chacham. But I can be made to my wife's nedarim retrospectively, right? I can nullify them. So certainly, since I can be made for my own neder prospectively, right, by standing at Yom Kippur and saying, I don't want all my nedarim of the next year to be valid, I should certainly be able to be made for my wife's nedarim prospectively. I would say, all of your nedarim from the next year should be null and void. Right? Makes sense? That's what we're smart. Then let me read it from the beginning. My b'makom she'enu mefer, where you can't be made for. You try to know that you own the dorm after you took them. Harehu mefer, you can't be made for. Nidrei ishto mishatidor, in the dorm, his wife, retrospectively. Makom shu mefer, the place where you can be made for, which are Nidrei atzmo achalo yidor. Again, changing this in the more. We make your own the dorm prospectively. Before you take the neder, ain't no danger affair. He should be able to be made for nidrei ishto achalo tidor. His wife's the door before she takes the neder. So that's everyone's argument. There should be perspective out for her. So the Gemara says again, Shai Torah changes that low. It changes to Amalei Rabbi Akiva. But you said no. Malam was retorting. He retorts it. You know why a person can be made for his own dorm before he takes a neder? Why he can tell people he doesn't want to be a neder? Because at that point he already has in his hand the capacity to sustain his own neder. Right? I can sustain my neder and therefore I can nullify it ahead of time. However, you don't have to be made for the wife's dorm before she takes the nedarim. Because of work, he cannot be making his wives nedarim at this point. It's too early, right? So therefore, because Voimer, Since it links the two. Her husband sustains the Nedarim, her husband is made for the Nedarim, and Shabbat Kolak, those which he can sustain, Baal Kolak, he can nullify. And Shabbat Kolak, those he cannot sustain, ain't no below Baal Kolak, cannot nullify. So his own Nedarim, he can nullify, he can sustain any time. And therefore he can nullify them anytime even prospectively. But his wife's Nedarim, he can only sustain after they've been taken. And then therefore you can only nullify them also retrospectively. What? Yeah. Okay? He's even before they're taken. But his wife's only after taken. Okay, look at this. Hey, ben Nedarim call you. You can be made for Nedarim the entire day. Yes, but Davar Lahakal Achmir, where there's a cool and a chumrah.